Hello and welcome to Ethereum Classic Community Call number 23. Today is the 2022-0503. This week, after a short break, we are returning, and thank you for joining us again. ETC Community Calls is a casual voice chat to discuss ideas surrounding ETC. All are welcome. You can join us on the Discord at ethereumclassic.org/discord, and you'll find this in the Community Calls channel. So as mentioned, we had a little break dealing with time zones and other technical difficulties, and now they're resolved, so we will be back on a normal show today. So just to quickly recap on the last call, we were talking about the ETC Co-op retrospective document that they released. And I think we covered most of it there, but just to recap, I thought it was overall a fairly well balanced, somber, but optimistic look at the previous year of ETC. And yeah, I mean, if you've been following the calls, you probably know all the content of that document, but we encourage you to read it if you have any interest in reviewing those events that occurred last year. Brolad, did you have any comments on the retrospective?
The main downside, as I see it, is that two teams have dismantled ETC Labs, and IOHK decided to leave after the Treasury proposal didn't got support from the community and ETC Co-op. And I think ETC Labs moved on to another project. So other than that, I think everything went as expected, more or less.
Yeah, in my view, last year was overall very positive, especially considering all the price hikes and natural adoption that's been happening. So even though ETC Labs sort of left the scene, their previous work kind of paid off and has been reaping the rewards, especially last year. It's kind of a shame that they and others left at this point, but their contributions will always be valued.
I think that there's also worth mentioning the fact that we saw last year development growing very fast on ETC with a lot of new projects. So compared to previous years, I think it was very good.
Yeah, it's the first year where that kind of growth has been happening organically without any like central direction, which is kind of the exciting thing.
And we can also take a look at I don't know, a core component of the network, and I'm referring here to the hash rate. It went very up last year, and it seems now that it is very stable, taking into account that the price fluctuated a lot. So I think we have some strong support from the miners at this point.
Yeah, it seems to have stayed pretty stable regardless of the fifth inning. And if I'm not mistaken, I might have seen in the chat earlier, the DAG size has breached the 3 GB limit now, I believe, which means that some cards are no longer supported.
Yeah, but something that's great that we have to look forward to is I believe it's in August. The Ethereum DAG hits crosses the 5 gig threshold. So we should see 5 gig cards get pushed over towards ETC if the merge doesn't happen before August.
Okay, great. That's another bonus for ETC. I guess just having a smaller DAG in general is always going to be a benefit, and eventually, depending
Not
on
only
how long.
smaller though, not only smaller though, it grows at half the rate. So that was the whole concept about ETC hash was even if Ethereum does not move to proof of stake, it would grow at twice the rate. So we would gradually just start accumulating all of the cards that they obsoleted. And I think that was really the brilliance of ETC hash was it took away ETH's ability to continue, to dwarf, what would it be, to really, yeah, to really just dwarf our hash rate because of having the same exact DAG growth. So as it continued to move forward, ETC was always going to get stronger as time went on due to ETC hash. And that started with the bringing back the 3 gigabyte cards. And I believe when we did that change, it was, the DAG was around like 2 gigabytes and something. But it revived those 3 gigabyte cards. And then the 4 gigabyte cards, if you remember when we got attacked, that's where our DAG hit. Our DAG hit the 4 gigabyte cards and they all got booted off the network. So we didn't have any cards. Um, and uh, and people were mining 4 gigabyte cards on zombie mode on Ethereum or sorry, yeah, I think it's Ethereum at the time. But anyways, so I think we'll see that. We'll see 5 gigabyte cards on zombie mode on Ethereum. But also remember that they did not delay the difficulty bomb. So we'll start seeing the difficulty bomb start to come into play on Ethereum, which will also help people migrate over to ETC. So there's a lot of factors that are working out in the favor as time goes on. Um, Even if they don't do the merge, in June or September or whatever it's signaling now.
Do you happen to know when the ETH difficulty bomb is supposed to go off, and how long is it going to be until it becomes an issue for mining on on Ethereum?
I don't know the exact dates. I just I remember watching. I think Brother Lol posted a video of some miners recently talking about it and how their last call on Friday they did not signal that they were delaying the difficulty bomb. They could always delay it, but the thought is that if they do that, then they have to do another hard fork, right? So they'll have to package in some other stuff to delay that rather than just
Right.
pushing a delay.
And if I'm not mistaken, cards will be 4 gigabyte cards will be able to mine ETC for another 2 years or 3 years, something like that.
Yeah, and I guess there's there's like a Jazz miner that's a 5 gigabyte card. I just watched a Red Panda mining video last night to catch up on what's going on with the GPU miners, and so there's some 5 gigabyte cards that are pretty notorious, and so when those come over, I'm not sure how long that will last, but as you said, 4 gigabyte I think is 2025. Is that right? Maybe 2024.
Yes.
Our deck. Yeah, so think about that. That's 5 gigabyte cards. It was substantially longer than that. And that's long term added hash rate to ETC. So you can see how this is going to go is the longer that ETH stays on proof of stake, we still will continue to accumulate cards and hash rate. So that's the whole concept of ETC hash has a long-term trend to go up and to the right on hash rate. And that's primarily due to all of that thinking that was going on in 2020 when those attacks happened. That's what it was, a very surgical approach to solve the problem, opposed to other people that were attempting to, just bash, our algorithm and just try to start from scratch, which was an insane approach that we still see today. I don't want to bring up what that proposal is, but the ETC hash proposal was very sophisticated, smart, and very delicate in how it approached. It was very surgical.
One thing that may go weird is that bill they proposed in US, where any new mining farm would need to assure that they have regenerable energy for opening mining and mining proof of work. So that may change things a little.
I don't see that as having a lot of traction, at least in the US. I wouldn't expect that that would have much. I mean, I'm from Colorado, and we have greenhouses to grow weed all over the place. And you want to talk about using energy resources? There's absolutely huge lobbies that would prevent anything like that. Um, just I think it's a lot of greenwashing that we see in our politics. So I wouldn't take that seriously.
Cool. Well, I guess I think ETC is in a good position in terms of hash rate, and especially the last couple of weeks has shown that regardless of the reduction in rewards and the loss of 3 GB chips, still going fairly strong. So the only way from here is up, I guess.
Yeah, my understanding, I think Warner had posted something about it, but my understanding is that 3 GB cards could be mining in zombie mode right now, and uh, and I believe he was saying that that made logical sense until about late June or July. So that might be another thing at play there. So we might see a little bit slight decrease, but what we do have is we have 5 GB cards on the horizon that will be starting to transfer over to ETC.
And it's fine anyway because Ethereum's going to switch before then, so we'll be fine.
Yeah, that's, I mean, that's the great thing. But if it doesn't, the flood will be reduced, right? It'll be that slow migration over, unless they switch over, and then we'll have an abundance of hash rate, which is a great thing for this network. This network needs it, and it makes it very logical to build on top of ETC when you have all of that hash rate there to secure all of your projects.
So before we move on, were there any other comments on the ETC co-op retrospective?
Well, just one thing about the summit. Like I know it it couldn't have happened because of the pandemic, but having this year or maybe for the next year a calendar for it, it would be nice.
Yeah, and also it doesn't prevent some kind of online event from happening, even if it's like just a Discord chat. But it could be a VR chat or something. I don't know. I remember during COVID, when it first hit, there were a lot of crypto-related chat rooms in some of the VR things, Ethereum as well, and it was quite engaging. Okay, so let's move on to the next piece, which is the ETC co-op roadmap for 2022, which I encourage everyone to take a look at. It's full of some interesting proposals and give some good insight into the current state of ETC and where it's going this year. Essentially, ETC Co-op now has much more of a central role in the ETC sort of mission as the main developer and also custodian of the lion's share of the funding that will be spent on ETC in the next couple of years, most likely. They're currently sitting on 5 million USD plus some ETC, which might appreciate in value, which gives them about 4 years of runway, and they have allocated 1.6 million USD for spending in 2022, which is pretty generous. As far as I can tell, they are planning to hire new staff, including core developers, project manager, communications and marketing manager. I think that the communications and marketing are going to be really important this year, especially as we decide, or we try and figure out what the messaging should be from now going forward. After last year's somewhat tumultuous community discussion, now that those sort of troubled waters are under the bridge, we can sort of refocus and look towards the future with a unified vision and message. And also, it'd be nice for ETC Co-op to have a full-time sort of communications manager, being able to keep on the pulse of the community and also have like a two-way communications channel. One of the things that I was thinking might be nice is for some kind of maybe quarterly, once every 4 months, have the ETC Co-op communications manager or someone else from the co-op on one of these calls, so we can have like a semi-frequent Q&A session about basically anything, as we've done in the past. I think on one of the first community calls was a very successful Q&A with Bob, so hopefully we can recreate that kind of thing on a semi-frequent basis.
Yeah, I'm looking at this article right now. I see that he has like 250,000 for ecosystem grants, and he identifies DEX, stablecoins, Oracle solutions, and bridges. You know, we've already solved that. We have that in testing right now, and that took all of, you know, a couple weeks for us to get that up and running. So I don't really see that necessarily being a priority for those type of funds. But I will say that anyone that has developed on ETC does see foundational problems in the development community, or in the development tools. And I would rather see funds kind of allocated towards those things. As an example is MetaMask. The derivative path that MetaMask uses is busted. So why don't we have a PR that's going to fix that? You know, just basic stuff like that. I think, you know, even forking a wallet and having a trusted wallet, I believe the HebeSwap guys have done that, but I haven't used that. And I think that that's more in line with their goal of doing a multi-chain product. But it would be nice for ETC to have, you know, a very trusted wallet of its own that uses the correct derivative path, but also that MetaMask handled ETC correctly. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, take your ledger or your Trezor and then look at your wallet in there, and then go into MetaMask, and you'll see that it's pulling the wrong div path. So, like, that's a prime example of that's not even very expensive, but that's a foundational paramount thing for adoption. So, I just really like, I don't know who's on the board over at ETC Co-op, but it's almost like sometimes they just say things and they're not really like actually using the products and all of that to really address our foundational problems. It's like, I mean, this is basic 101 stuff, and I'd just like to see a lot more intellectual capital and direction from that organization. I think we've seen in the past, we've seen them be fairly loose with their limited budget and kind of working on things that are misdirected in nature, given their limited budget. And now we have $5 million. They're doing 250K, and they're talking about putting up DEXs, stablecoins, Oracle solutions, and bridges. You don't need to do that. That's naturally going to happen. What you need to do is you need to work on making sure the foundational wallet that everyone in the entire crypto ecosystem supports ETC correctly. That's really where I think their focus should be with these type of funds. Also, I want to mention is that the next paragraph down says that they're getting ready to draft a fresh proposal for a minimal treasury. We literally just
We
went
will
through
get
a
into
year and
that.
we literally
We
just went a year and a half of debating this, and it absolutely had no buy-in. People were super pissed, and it was
yeah, yeah.
contentious. And now we're
Let's
gonna
put this to the
spend money
side.
on that.
Let's put this to the side for now. If that's right.
Okay,
We
I'm sorry.
like
I'm just
Just
looking at this. It's like,
uh,
what are you doing, Bob? And like the board, you guys need to get your stuff together.
related
we will
to
talk
to
about
the
that.
wallet, I think Igor revived the Emerald wallet. So I'm not sure how well it works. Haven't tried it yet, but I'll try it.
So
It's available for download.
I can speak to the MetaMask issue because I've previously attempted to request via GitHub integration with ETC into MetaMask, and it seems like this is just a political thing that they're not going to accept or try to integrate ETC in any way, largely because it's basically controlled by consensus at this point. So I think even if there was like a proper pull request to add ETC support as first class support, it would be rejected. And that's just because MetaMask has political issues, which is primarily why I recommend using other wallets like Nifty Wallet. Emerald Wallet, I think, is a good like project, but as far as I understand, it doesn't replace MetaMask in terms of dApp interaction as a browser extension type experience. I might be wrong about that.
No, it's a desktop wallet.
Right. And I think for like the vast majority of people that are using crypto, at least Ethereum ecosystem in the last year or so, for them just a wallet is MetaMask. They don't really need to use anything else or would want to use anything else. They would just expect to be able to use MetaMask or something like MetaMask. And yeah, the derivative path thing is a problem, but I don't think it's something that can be fixed within MetaMask itself. And in any case, MetaMask is not an open source project, so I don't think we should be promoting that kind of software, really.
Yeah, I think that would be a great solution is that we have an open source version of that that goes online. But we also have to go to where the people are, right? They all have MetaMask installed, so it's an unfortunate reality that as dApps go online on ETC, they need to be compatible with MetaMask. It's like trying to get people off Safari or a different Internet Explorer, you know. So that's the unfortunate reality. Hopefully, I didn't realize that it was political. Hopefully, I believe that Bob does pretty well in trying to work those political angles. So hopefully we can get a dialogue opened with them, especially as the dApps go online on ETC, as brother was talking about. How we've started seeing development this last year really increase on ETC. So I understand that position when we had a fairly bare dApp development space, but that is not the future that we're going to be living in. So hopefully we revisit that with MetaMask and get that solved. Or otherwise, I mean, there is a solution where you can set up a custom MetaMask that adjusts the div path, but it's not user friendly. So we need a guide for that. But also, nothing's good about an experience when you log in and you go, "Oh my God, I have no money. Where did all my money go?" And then you find out that it's a technical bug inside the wallet, and you have to do all this custom stuff to get your money back, get access to your money.
Speaking of which, I think MetaMask had an outrage with a cloud provider, so it went offline for, I don't know, a few hours. Everybody panic.
Yeah, that's a great topic. We should talk about that. That centralization. It is fascinating that MetaMask has been captured by. I mean, didn't is it still a consensus project, or was it a Joe Lieben project and Lubin project, and and then he sold off part of it to like J.P. Morgan. So now it's just like a big bank wallet that's tracing all of your transactions. Pretty sketchy to me.
Yeah, I mean, Joe Lubin / consensus. I don't know exactly what the ownership structure is precisely, but I think generally that's what has happened. As far as I understand, JP Morgan like that. Not sure though. In any
Yeah.
case, it's a shame. Sort of revolutionary new technology to be immediately captured by the entrenched interests. So hopefully people recognize that going forward.
Yeah, and I think that is a great position of if we end up creating an alternative and getting it into all the app stores that is open source, and then making sure that if we do that, that we do support the Ethereum Foundation network as well. And while the Ethereum Foundation network has continuously been adversarial to the Classic network, I think that we can be the bigger man and set it up in a way where yes, Classic is the main net, just as it has been through history. But we do have support for the Ethereum Foundation, so that the general public does have an alternative to that centralized big bank wallet called MetaMask now.
Absolutely. And really the main central point of failure is not MetaMask itself, but Infura, which is the service behind MetaMask that does the endpoint, which I believe is just consensus. So consensus infrastructure, Infura went down as opposed to MetaMask itself.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I think that we should, that would be an interesting call to get people like Rivet, now that ETC and ETC Co-op and Ether Cluster are kind of built on Rivet. It'd be interesting to have those people. We should reach out to see if they want to do a call and kind of talk about their system, and maybe just exploring kind of that infrastructure system, and seeing if there's ways to build that in an open way. That is the backbone of everything, and right now, and that's what Co-op is using. So it'd just be fascinating to see how that's getting organized, because it's not really on my radar. That'd be very educational.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to hear about the sort of plumbing that goes behind the scenes. Just
Yeah,
FYI, if anyone's listening to this call, there is a really good guide about setting up MetaMask on ETC. It doesn't cover. I'm not sure how it works with the derivative path, but if you just have a fresh wallet, then it will use the same derivative path as Ethereum, and
yeah, and
you can still
the
use it as
derivative
normal.
path, you run into an issue there when you're using a hard wallet. And so if you use Trezor Suite or Ledger Live, as I believe what they're called, there's software desktop wallets. If you set that up and then you start sending funds to that wallet, then you integrate in MetaMask, so you're doing the proper OPSEC procedures. Then you go into MetaMask and you don't see your funds, and so yeah, it's because it's pulling the wrong path. So then you have to figure out a way to hard code your div path so that it aligns correctly like Trezor and Ledger set it up. So that's where you'll really see it. But if you just do a fresh address from MetaMask and you're not trying to import a hard wallet, you'll be fine to interact with that. It's just if you take that seed and then you go into your Trezor or your Ledger later on, you wouldn't see your money, right? So that's where we'll run into the issue.
Yeah, this is also a kind of generic issue across many different apps, I believe, in like a MyEther wallet or MyCrypto. It gives you the option of selecting a derivative path, but as far as I understand, there's no like standard across every like chain. I think maybe Trezor and Ledger have become the standard just because they're most popular, but there was never actually like an ECIP to define what the Ethereum Classic derivative path should be, as far as I know.
Yeah, and I actually can't even remember what path it pulls. I'm wondering if MetaMask pulls div path 1 and Trezor and Ledger pull div path 0. I'm guessing that it's a stupid error like that.
As far as I'm aware, it's like /0/ something 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 something, and then 61 for the chain ID. But Ledger will just use 1 for the Ethereum chain ID.
Yeah, and a fun fact for why Ethereum Classic is chain ID 61, it actually comes from that library from, I believe it's Trezor, who originally set it to 61 in terms of that path. So that's
Right.
just a little fun fact.
So if anything, that's more official than Ethereum Classic itself.
Yeah, right. That's the infrastructure. That's that's how it goes.
So Ethereum Classic is downstream of Ledger. So I guess they get to decide what the derivative path is. Fair enough.
I mean, that must have been put in during the replay attacks. I'll have to go back and look at the dates, but that's probably likely when all of that stuff came out.
Yeah, it would. So the order of events would have been Ethereum Classic gets 61. Not sure who decided that. And then Treasury would have implemented 61. So, in fact, Ethereum Classic did come first. Okay, so we were talking about communications and marketing before we go to the next thing. Was there anything on there that anyone wanted to add?
I just wanted to add, related to the previous subject, even Bob have said on Discord. Currently, most ETC users are using COPS endpoint, and there's no other public free one where people can hook their wallets. So I don't know. I think this may be a problem. So finding a way to have more endpoints, having a backup that may help in the future.
Yeah, I actually think I was reading about the basically somewhat centralization of the public endpoint situation on ETC, and it might be potential good use of the grants to sort of incentivize other organizations to run public endpoints in a way that can be quite easily checked, right? You just have a little bot that occasionally pings them every other day, and if they return the correct response, then you can confirm they're operating. And in return of doing that, you get like a small fee from this grants program. And then you can create a list of all those different nodes. The same is true of the boot nodes, I believe. So in the Ethereum Classic client, in order to search for new clients through some gossip network, I believe, you need to bootstrap with some initial nodes, and most of those nodes are owned by or operated by Ethereum Classic Co-op. So again, this would be a nice opportunity to run some kind of rewards program for operating a boot node as well as an RPC endpoint. So maybe that's an idea if you're listening, ETC Co-op.
Is there so I think that's a good idea to use real life funds. Is there or just fiat funds, I suppose. Also it would make sense for co-op to set up redundancies. They have a Rivet endpoint essentially right now. But also setting up an endpoint on a different competitor to Rivet so that if Rivet has an issue, there's a functional endpoint. And why that's relevant is that literally just happened this last month, where um, Rivet had a load balancer issue where they updated all of their servers except for one, and anytime you ping that server, you got a bad call. And so while we were testing our software, we ran into that quite a bit, and we couldn't figure out if it was our code or if it was the RPC. And it ended up being the RPC. I think a lot of other people in the community started experiencing the same, and we had a little discussion in the dev general chat. And to Rivet's credit is as soon as someone in the ETC community reached out, they troubleshooted it and it was solved in a matter of days. So, but that's an example of how as it's very common in computer software systems that you build redundancies with the expectation that at least one thing will break, and something big like the RPC endpoint breaking for the entire network, it would be great to have an alternative that has an entire different backend system. So that makes sense. The other thing would be to lean into that idea of what you're saying of using grants to fund people, and then testing by pinging the RPC endpoints. Is perhaps there's a tokenized system that can be built in there, where your uptime and all of that, you earn some sort of token that ends up having uh, a reward to it, and so you can build some sort of decentralized Infura system with an ERC20 token and a mission schedule that you earn it just like how mining, you earn it by being online. You earn it by servicing calls and being online. Just a thought.
Yeah, there's probably some way to set up a tokenized system, and whether it could be fully trustless or not, it's probably possible, but a little bit more complicated. But yeah, obviously it'd be nice to use the native token as opposed to fiat currency if possible, and it would also encourage people to do it in a more decentralized way without requiring KYC and without requiring whatever kind of PayPal account or whatever to receive the funds. So ETC is the obvious choice in that case.
It would also allow, if we could build some sort of way where, essentially a load balancer for RPCs, where, if you can point to one RPC, but then it funnels to all of these different endpoints that are set up. It's a variable thing, so that instead of, like, I just think of Bob was just mentioning co-op's endpoint is servicing quite a bit of people right now. If we have some sort of load balancer for endpoints that's splitting that burden out, I think that response time and just the burden of running the Infura is spread out.
That's a cool idea. You could have like an on-chain registry of all these different points that is also used by some kind of DNS service that then fails over or randomly, sort of in a round robin fashion, directs traffic to either DNS or a load balancer in that sense.
Yeah, and I think,
Maybe
I don't know who's the specialist in that, but I bet like people that are specialized in routing, right? Just internet routing, that type of processes. I bet that there's some value there. So if anyone's listening that has that type of expertise, I really think there is value there. And, that allows people like us, just, maybe not miners, but other people in the ecosystem, to fire that up on their computer and run, RPCs and all of that, and with the assumption that there is some sort of incentive play built in. I would certainly run that from. I would designate a computer to do that. So I think that makes sense. It's out of my realm, so I can't be someone that's going to pick that up because I wouldn't design it correctly. But if anyone has that skill set, that would be very welcome.
The problem is with setting up such infrastructure is the equipment, because you basically need, for starters, right, on one single location you'd need 2 servers and clusterize them and assure redundancy for internet, and also have someone to look at them and for maintenance. So setting this up on different locations on the globe, it's very complicated. You'd need some sort of proxy that can connect them all and something like that. It's complicated.
Do you think that it would be possible to design some sort of Docker image that does that, and then you can deploy it into any cloud-based infrastructure for online time, and then it has the kind of incentive system built in and all of that? Obviously, you pull it from some sort of PGP signature verified source. But I mean, that might be a way of, yes, there could be ways to do it at your house. And so you build the system and you actually have all the equipment there. But for people that just want to maybe fire it up, essentially it's like mining, right? But instead you're providing the piping. Um, is that a solution? Is that perhaps it could be a Docker image that just has kind of an easy guide to deploy, and then you set
I think the simplest way is to run your own node, right? You run it your own, and you connect to it, and that's all. You don't use a public service if you really need. But I don't know, having people and show them how to do it, and maybe make some tutorial about it in case they really need fast access and high frequency. I think that can solve it.
I think the main issue that the public RPC endpoint solves is onboarding new people that don't really want to go to the hassle of setting up their own node, as well as people on mobile who can't set up a node on their mobile device. So it'd be really nice to have like a decentralized version of that has built-in redundancy. And I don't think you necessarily need to have full-scale DevOps / like infrastructure for each individual supplier of the endpoint. As long as there's enough individual suppliers of endpoints in the pool of endpoints, then redundancy will mean that the load can be fairly distributed without requiring super high levels of infrastructure requirement. But there's a lot of problems to solve in this project. It's a very cool project, by the way, and I think someone should make this. But there's a lot of things to solve, including like, as you said, routing and how to find like the best node to connect to, how to balance that between different parties and clients, how to ensure that the incentivization system is not gamed. I think that's the hardest part, and how to do that in a relatively decentralized way. But a set of very interesting problems to solve, and something that really needs to exist and is applicable to far more than just Ethereum Classic. So I think the first person to crack it would be, sitting on a nice project there.
You also need to take in account the request per days. Like I'm seeing here in the document, the endpoint of the current endpoint is receiving like 90 million requests per day. So that's like huge.
Yeah, I think that's the thought of doing some sort of load balancer where the end user only really has to hit one endpoint, but then on the back end it starts to take that traffic and divvy it out to other endpoints. So it's not necessarily hard coded in everyone's MetaMask or whatever wallet they're using. Um, I mean that's the issue right now is I mean I even have a private Rivet endpoint, but if I have the public endpoint in my MetaMask, all of my calls will be going through that. And so, and then also with dApps, when you're setting, the front UI UX, it's like, you hard code that endpoint, and then, that unless I go back and I change it to a different endpoint, I'm always going to be hitting the public RPC. So, so I think that there is value there. Maybe this is something that 250K could work for at the co-op, is building some sort of load balancer, and then thinking about a system where we can, where we can fire up and start contributing in that way as well. And hopefully there's some sort of incentive in it outside of just the 250K.
I think this kind of project could be quite easily tokenized in some way and definitely monetized if there is a fee structure in place. But yeah, there's a number of problems to solve, and how you make it user friendly in terms of like what URL do they put in the box, and if it's just one URL, then you just have a centralization point there. So how do you get people to generate their own URLs, and how do you load balance that is a problem.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that there's a lot of mechanics in here that makes it similar to mining, proof of work mining, and so I think that there is an incentive system that could be built in there. Also, there can be pools and such. So Infura pools could be a solution, but I really think that maybe some sort of router and load balancing makes a lot of sense. And there are definitely plenty of specialized people in that will probably hear that and say, "Oh, well, that's really easy to solve. We've done it in so many other applications. This is, an easy one for us to pick up." So hopefully they hear this video and it'd be a great project.
Yeah, in the meantime, I mean, whether or not it's done in a fully decentralized way, for Ethereum Classic, it'd be good to have some other organizations running both RPC nodes and boot nodes. So I think that's a reasonable thing to be incentivizing the creation of.
Yeah, and I think just to kind of close on that is I think that aligns with what co-op's purpose is. Co-op's purpose isn't to, make dexes or any of that. Its purpose is to support the infrastructure of Ethereum Classic. That I believe is where its funding source came from and all of that. And so, it's nice to see them now funding client developers. It was odd when they weren't doing that. I know that they had a small budget, but their company organization was very strange when it didn't have any developers on their payroll. So it's nice to see them doing that and then starting to support services that are the backbone to the network and a necessity. And then hopefully some different funding sources come in to you know solve long-term solutions to making sure that's stable. Or systems get built like we're talking about this Infura, um, built in this way where it's incentivizing people in the long haul to pick it up, and co-op can kind of fade away as that system grows.
I would also add to that, just so I don't forget, that I would also categorize developer tooling as part of that infrastructure sort of remit and scope. And whilst I believe that developing ETC is pretty much exactly the same as Ethereum, it'd be nice to make sure that that documentation and support in all the popular developer tools is there. And ideally, Ethereum Classic is a first-class citizen in that ecosystem.
Yeah, that's a good point of like if you use Remix right now, ETC isn't in there. It says, I think ETH London. But that's just an example of how what are they, IDEs? Um, how it would be nice to have some sort of native support for Classic in there. We really do need to work on the development experience. It is a bit confusing. It takes some onboarding. Once you get it, it's actually not that challenging, but when you're burning a lot of time just trying to get stuff to work how it should work, and just trying to find out how the heck do I support this network? Those are the low hanging fruit. That's the stuff that's straightforward to solve, and it just takes a little bit of effort and likely communication with those products, and we can get all of that solved. It'd be great if
Right.
some developers highlighted a list of popular tools that needed to be looked at and fixed. Like for instance, on this call, we've talked about MetaMask and that div path, Remix, and maybe some other ones, so that at least co-op has that on their radar. That would be great. I think that Cody always said, if the community requests it, co-op will put it on their priority list. So that's likely a good approach.
Yeah, it's like if you have a budget of 100K and you have the option of building a DEX or ensuring that all the tools are ready and easy to use for other people to build however many apps they want, then it seems to make sense to focus on the tooling.
Yeah, exactly. If you're giving everyone fishing poles as opposed to giving them fish.
That is the analogy I was looking for. So yeah, hopefully this 250K of grants in 2022 will be allocated effectively and will have the intended effect on the growth of the ETC ecosystem. So next topic, if we're ready to move on.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, this is the fresh proposal for a minimal treasury. And I know there might be some strong opinions on this call, so let's try to keep it as, shall we say, brief as possible. But I think most of us on this call are in agreement that we have had the discussion already in terms of Treasury, and hopefully we don't have a repeat of last year in terms of another long drawn out discussion. But my position is if there's something new and fundamentally different, then I'm definitely open to all possibilities. But I just hope it's not something that's like slightly tweaked. I mean, the kind of treasury that I'd be open to is one that's not based on a protocol update, but is funded on the application layer in some way. And there's various means to doing that. I believe some members of the call are actually in the process of trying to do that. So I will open the floor.
I only have one comment regarding this subject. First of all, there is that community fund that has never been spent, or it has been spent for organizing a summit or something like that. The community fund hasn't been used and can be used at this moment. And another thing, you have co-op who hasn't had a person like engaging in the crypto space, or trying to attract sponsors, or trying to I don't know, get funds. So there isn't much work done in this area. other than this proposal. So I think till we have something more, have a long-term plan that can cover, I don't know, the basic measures, the basic things that should be made regarding attracting funding, and it's just all talk, and it creates an ambiguous situation.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And that was kind of one thing that on their little 2021 recap is I don't know what co-op's doing in the sense of they have this negative messaging like, oh, everything's so bleak in ETC, just a really weird messaging that creates fear and uncertainty and doubt for the future. And so I don't really understand why they try that messaging, and it's confusing when you're supposed to be a supporter of the protocol. What I will say, and then I just want to say on like just reading this little blurb, it says there appears to be some remaining appetite for a treasury system if it is open and fair and limited in scope. I don't know where they got that. My understanding of the treasury debate was that it was heavily rejected by the mining community, who they were trying to get 20% of all mining block rewards. And then there didn't seem to be a lot of appetite for the centralized approach where it ingrained these organizations in the protocol to receive these funds forever, right? In perpetuity. That is insane. Other people thought, hey, we should put a dead switch on this at 5 years, that in 5 years this treasury dissolves. But we all know how that would go is if you're receiving the funds, all you do is you keep delaying that switch, as we've seen with the proof of stake example, right? In the difficulty bomb in Ethereum is that you push an update and then you delay when the dead switch happens. So there is not a big appetite for this treasury system, and I think it's a waste of funds, and it will generate another contentious conversation between the mining community and a very small development team, when there's other solutions that you can do on top of ETC that actually are a positive. It's a win-win. You're building on top of ETC and you are funding development in that way, and you're building a robust ecosystem that is putting protocols online that other people can build subsidiary protocols to that protocol that you've put online. That's how you build an ecosystem. You don't just hard code the block reward to yourself. And I think IOHK failed in a miserable way, and they tucked their tails and ran after there was absolutely no appetite for that. And then co-op came out at the very end to withdraw support from that. But I mean, that was a dead proposal pretty much when it arrived, even when the network was on its knees in a 51% attack, and people were trying to solve the ETC hash solution. So that was an example of someone coming in and trying to centralize and control, which this network will reject 100% of the time, or people approaching the surgical approach of solving the solution, which was ETC hash. And the network took that in with open arms. And this network isn't stupid. It's not a centralized network. The participants in it are fairly sophisticated. They've been around for a very long time, and you're not going to be able to pull the sheet over their eyes on something like a new centralized treasury at a protocol level. It does not have steam. And I'm not someone that would be paying for it, right? I'm not a miner. You have to look at what we're dealing with here, and it's just not in the cards. It's not worth the debate. What's more worth the debate is starting to talk about how do we do fees and scaling for this network in the future. That's where the direction's gonna go, because that's the trajectory of this network. This is just opening old wounds that have kind of scabbed over. So I hope that that's clear to co-op and the board, because this was another thing where I was saying, oh my God, this is business as usual. 2019, 2020, 2021, contentious proposals by the private development teams to try to centralize the network and centralize funding for themselves. I'm sorry if that was
I would
blunt
also
and straightforward.
it's
They need
thank
to
you.
hear it. They need to hear it because it does have an effect. It's a negative effect, and it can be damaging to all of the other great things that are going on this network. Is that when people continue to bring this type of stuff up in this contentious debate, you really start causing problems, and you just bring this uncertainty of, oh my God, you give a talking point for the people that hate the network and want to attack the network, and that's coming from within. So we just need to stop that. There's far better solutions than building these protocol level ECIP funding mechanisms that have failed since 2016, and they're failing today. It's nothing new. There's been no appetite for it. You can just go look at the track record.
Okay, thanks for that. And I think we can move on unless anyone else has any points to raise on that topic. I will just add one final thing that with this new reality of ETC Co-op having 4 years of runway, I think there's apparently, well, depending on the nature of the proposed Treasury, I think that would need to be taken into account as well, as it seems to be less of a pressing concern at this stage.
One thing I will say about that 4-year timeline is that as we see adoption go up, I would expect their variable cost to go up, just simple accounting. And so perhaps Bob's wife Allison could maybe set up some projections for ETC Co-op to release. But I think of their endpoint, for instance, if we don't solve that load balancer where the burden starts to go to other organizations, their burn rate will increase as the network continues to hammer that endpoint. So just something on the radar is I had asked Bob if he expected it to be a static burn or if he expected it to grow. He said static on that 4-year, but I would expect it to actually grow in terms of expenses as more dApps and everything go online and use the infrastructure that they have been putting up in place.
Yeah, I'm not sure how the growth would look in terms of overall budget for just the endpoint, but I don't know. I can't imagine it being too crazy in terms of, I mean, depending on the number of users. And as far as I understand, Rivet is kind of handling a lot of that on their side. So I'm not sure if that's like a direct cost to ETC Co-op.
Yeah, I think what they did was they just set up a plan with them. You can go on rivet.cloud right now and set one up. We actually did that while the RPC was messing up for us, and then we found out that it was Rivet that was the issue. Excuse me, sorry, my throat's dry. But their pricing is fairly favorable, but if you hit it a bunch, the pricing goes up.
Did you want to jump in there, Brolo?
Yeah, just wanted to add about the Treasury talk. I think they should really look on some other solutions, because it's clear I can go and open a crypto news website, and I can see that some project got $30 million funding. Some other project got also money, and I think people are opening up to crypto, and we have a very cool protocol, and I think it's just I don't know, finding the right persons to go and talk to investors, talk to businesses, and find a way to support ETC, to invest in it and grow it.
Yeah, I believe McIntyre brought up that point as well a few calls ago, and finding investment in some way. How they're going to make a return on that investment, I'm not 100% sure, but as other chains are doing so, surely there must be some kind of model to work with.
Yeah, and just on, I think that the community fund was mentioned, and my understanding of the community fund is that they don't feel comfortable just giving it like to an organization like co-op, for instance. So and that also comes when you're talking about when you're requesting money. This was another thing that failed at, was when you're requesting money, you need to have a roadmap and you need to have a plan. You can't just say, oh, just give us a bunch of unmarked money for no reason and in perpetuity. And it's really hard to get buy-in when you have that. If it's, hey, we need 100K for wallet maintenance or client maintenance or something like that. That's a far different thing. And then when you have a roadmap like that, then the discussion goes, well, does it even make sense to do this through the protocol, or shouldn't we just do out of protocol funding solutions, right? Is there a way to, um, you know, build some sort of revenue stream into the products we're creating to make this self-sustaining? This is business 101 stuff. And it does not make sense to do it at a protocol level for the network, especially for, when we're all about decentralization and open contributions. You're not going to be able to do it from the protocol level if you just have an address that's getting money deposited into. Um, it's very complex, and then trying to remove that funding mechanism in the protocol in the future. Now that's where the real problem happens.
Well, let's be open-minded and see if and when and how they land this new minimal treasury proposal. And if it is indeed a protocol level layer treasury, let's hope that it's a well-designed one. But let's move on to the next topic, which is ECIP 1049 is still on the plate, though it is not urgent and rather contentious, which I think is a fair statement, and one that I am seeing as reasonable and a fairly neutral stance, which is good. I don't think there's anything contentious about that statement itself.
Yeah, I think I'm seeing it says not urgent and rather contentious, and I think that that's accurate. You know, I don't think that we've seen a fault in ETH hash or ETC hash to date, which I think that is the urgency. I don't think that we've seen a drop off on network hash rate. We are pushing on all-time high hash rate for the network ever, so that's in a great shape. Um, so I think that the real value from all of that, while it's been long drawn out, contentious, and very painful at times, has been it's got us looking at transition planning for the future. In 100 years, we certainly might see ETH hash and ETC hash become obsolete as computer equipment itself changes, right? So I think there's merit there in terms of transition planning on any sort of algorithm. I think that 1049 is dead in the water because of I think that it's focused on doing that. I mean, it's dated today. This was back in 2018, 2019 when the hash rate was a much different picture, and the entire network or the entire ecosystem was a much different picture. Nowadays, it's it's a lot of it's not even applicable, and so it's in a redraft stage. But I honestly, I just don't see that that has a life. I think that it'll end up dying. I think the transition planning and that stuff will reemerge as a new ECIP in the future if it's ever needed. But 1049 to me is dead with just a few ASIC sock puppets that pop up and try to stir the pot on it. But I think the network's past it, and we're in a good shape moving forward.
I was excuse me. I generally agree and would say that 1049 as it stands, whilst some of the content in there is good and the arguments for SHA-3 we've gone over many times in the past, but generally I think it's a step forward in terms of technology. But the devil is in the details of the transition, and hopefully the next SHA-3 related ECIP will have far more meat on the bones in terms of transition planning and schedule, and hopefully, or maybe, there could just be an ECIP for generic algorithm changes that can be reapplied to any different algorithm. And I think that would be useful as a kind of augmentable ECIP.
Yeah, and I think that's where the real value is right there, is that transition planning and a generic to any generic algorithm. And that's because we already use this hashing function that 1049 is trying to go to. So if there's an exploit in the hashing function in etc hash, guess what? There's also an exploit in the 1049 hashing function, correct? Because it's the same. So we're not gaining anything. It's really a removal of the DAG is how that should be looked at. And I don't think that there's a lot of value in that today. So I think that we'll I think we would see a completely different ECIP if we were talking about a transition to a completely different algo, not a transition to the same algo we have and surgically removing the DAG.
We should also wait to see if the proposal gets updated, because since last development call, that that was the conclusion, that it needs an update, and for the time being, there's no urgency in I don't know, setting a date, a calendar, a block, or something like that.
Yeah, and Henry had came on one of these calls and said that he had not he's not pursuing any of that hybrid transition planning and such. And so it just kind of did what it's did back in 2020 of it never updated. So we'll see. But when someone messages that it's not urgent and it's rather contentious, you have to kind of put that, you read between the lines there. And what that means is that we don't really have appetite here. It's kind of like how IOHK, when they left with their treasury, there wasn't a lot of appetite, but what they said was, we're going to withdraw this and focus on other things. They didn't say, wow, we utterly failed in this proposal. That's just not how humans work. So I would just read between the lines there and just understand that it's likely that that proposal will start going silent. There's not a lot of need for that. And I think the hash rate being at all-time highs and new miners coming in constantly, I think we're in a really good spot in terms of network health and outlook in the future.
I'm going to comment on that. Like I don't think that's entirely correct, but I'll leave my comments for for the work on 1409. As far as hash rate growth being all-time high, it's virtually insignificant. The network does need something longer term, and I don't want to get into the rat hole of what's good on this call and where it should go.
Yeah, but you can't. Empirical evidence shows that we're in an up and to the right trend on hash rate, and so while you can paint a doomsday scenario as you've been trying to do for the last couple of years, we understand your financial incentive to do so. That's just not the case on this network, and so you can come and you can try to paint a bleak picture and have sock puppets come in and everything, but it's not going
Ronan,
to affect the
Ronan,
greater
I didn't call you a
greater
soft puppet, okay? And we're
gonna
not
it's not gonna affect
we're not going to
the
deny
greater
both of
network.
us of
It's a
financial
decentralized
incentives.
thing that you're not gonna be able to
Regardless,
stop.
let's leave this for 1409.
Yeah, let's move on for now. I can see this quickly escalating, so we should
Agreed.
put that to the side for
That's
now.
why I didn't want to get into the
Yeah,
debate.
I mean that's what happens when a centralized actor tries to capture things. They get rejected.
Okay. So the next topic is I have a quote from the roadmap saying ETC needs so this is ETC co-op saying they need a clear position statement for ETC, and we need to work with the community on agreed direction and focus. And that sounds to me like they are looking for feedback about what the sort of narrative for ETC should be and how decisions should be informed going forward. I think that may have been like the narrative for ETC is constantly evolving, right? Constantly being refined. And I think maybe last year, especially with the launch of the new website, there's been a lot more refining going on in terms of that. And one of the memes that's been picked up, even by ETC Co-op itself, is the ETC is ETH plus BTC meme. And I think that kind of summarizes in a nice, a quick way, basically what ETC is all about. So in terms of agreed direction and focus, what does that mean exactly in terms of what are we looking for, and what kind of focus do you guys think ETC Co-op should adopt?
For example, I I think things are very stable now. I think all the community agrees that ETC needs marketing and better communication and opening, and I don't know, letting the world know that ETC is open for business. So I think this is our major down point. We we need to increase adoption, and let's be real, marketing is the way to go. There's no other way, unfortunately. We can say all the techie stuff, right? How great the protocol is, how stable it is now, how hash rate may grow soon, and everything else. But without marketing, without a very good campaign about how resilient ETC has proven to be, how I don't know, how the coin is basically hard money, and what can achieve for a simple person.
Yeah, I agree with the sentiment there. And in terms of narrative, I think we should try and potentially predict the future in a way to kind of preempt the future trends that are going to arrive in the blockchain space. And I think you touched on something earlier, Ronan, about related to the whole JP Morgan thing and how Ethereum Classic could be seen as like the open source and free and non-captured chain. And I think that is gonna be a future sort of selling point as time goes on, is my perception. If the current trend continues in terms of Ethereum and the path it's chosen to go down, that would be a marketing differentiator.
Yeah, and just to hit on kind of the marketing angle, I think that we have a lot of great things going for it. I think I want to say it was 2016 or 2017, someone set up a bunch of marketing stuff in the media kit folder. Classic can't beat the real thing. There's a lot of angles there for a marketing team to work with. Um, I have some branding guys that I work with, and when they started seeing kind of where ETC is, hearing its story, reading that the timeline history that we have on the website, a lot of the work that was done on the website, the narrative in there, is really really good work. It really helps a branding outfit to kind of understand this network, and then those are the type of people that can set up a brand and vision. I would not think co-op would be people that could do that just because they're very technical, right? And that's an issue is that people, in our ecosystem that are very technical, they get talking and then everyone else just glazes over. That's the beauty in marketing is you take a great subject like ETC and you make it sexy and you make it easily digestible and you get it done in a couple seconds. Um, so so I think we have everything we need on the website. It's about getting the right branding people together to start building campaigns, and maybe we need some money that funnels into that to start marketing the network around. Of course, stuff has to go online as well. You can't just have a network that is just running for miners and you don't have the use cases built on top. Um, so that's the other element to it. Uh, and then I'd also say, just give credit to Donald. Donald did a really great job of, in his content, in his own way, of expressing the technical merit to Classic in the greater blockchain ecosystem as the largest proof of work smart contract network. And that is the meme for that is ETH plus BTC equals ETC. That the meme really highlights that thought, that longer thought that Donald had. So I think we have a lot of that value prop and everything really flexed out, but it's about bringing competent branding people in, and I don't know why they would need to be on payroll, but because you can just set up campaigns, but I would do it with some pretty good outfits, opposed to going with the cheapo marketing outfits. But anyways, I think we have all of the material there on the website.
I think the position of ETC as an alternative to Ethereum is still a good one, especially in light of the merge. And then on top of that, we have a big transaction fee advantage. That message isn't well known in the community.
Well, and we only have that due to where we are in the life cycle. We will have to in the ECIP process. We're going to have a scaling debate. It's going to be long and drawn out, but I think we've talked about this a little bit in the past, and it'll be interesting to see if we can fire up side chains and optimistic rollups and such to mitigate the fee market when it starts to grow and get excessive. But our tech stack, it's not like we're more efficient. We're just an emptier highway.
Yep, understood.
I think another important thing to mention that has also sort of happened in the last year is the explosion of YouTube videos that have been made about Ethereum Classic, mostly in English. But it would be potentially nice to have a series of videos that cover the sort of Y Classic value proposition in English, but also in a series of different languages. Because I think we are lacking in terms of outreach to, apart from English speaking places.
isn't like Korea, aren't they a big adopter of Classic?
I believe so.
Yeah, so it might make sense. I don't know. We have our other language channels. Maybe it makes sense to I mean, if we can get, I don't know, brother, do you you did a little of the video stuff. If you can maybe think of how we could get the copy that we have on the website and get it into some sort of video format. And then if we have some sort of, I don't know, animations or something that makes it look sexy and easy to digest. And then we just have closed captioning that translates to other languages. I think that might be
Yeah,
an easy lift.
yeah. Well, I have some experience with marketing. The thing is, you basically need to do a campaign. Like you have to have one single message or two messages, but one main one, and start building around that. And you build by making videos, making reading materials, I don't know, making memes. It's not that hard to do, but you need like a team, right? You need to talk like with, I don't know, two or three guys and have that unity and make the materials. Making the materials is not the hard part, but having them distributed online, right? Like if you make these sort of materials, you'd want to put them in ads, you'd want to pump them on Twitter, you'd want, I don't know, having them on crypto summits and stuff like that. So there's a whole idea. So if you make a 1 year campaign, right, and you go everywhere and meet people and have communication and have talks and have engagement with the people, then yes, it will work. People will see that everything is moving, everything is alive, people are active, and will tend to adopt, and that's how marketing works. But if you do one video and, for example, if I make one video and put it on YouTube, I'll probably get, I don't know, 100 views. So like, why would I work for 100 views? Okay, the video is good, it's great, but if you don't make it in a way where you have a campaign that backs you and shares you and have a community ready to spread the message, then you just work for nothing.
Yeah, I think that's a great point of how it does need to be organized in a professional way. This is one of the larger networks. It definitely makes sense to approach it in that way.
And there's another thing. ETC doesn't have a public figure, right? So this is good in terms of the protocol, but it's bad in terms of the image. So when people go and look up ETC, they see, the first thing they see that it was born from a hack, and this is the reality, and we need to smoother it and make it more understandable and show people that ETC is great because it will always survive. So it's hard to put that in a message and in a marketing based on our history, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't try. But overall, without a proper focus in this direction, it's not just going to happen.
I kind of disagree on that point in terms of I don't think it needs necessarily. I mean, yes, it'll definitely help to have like a massive centrally funded marketing campaign for ETC, but I don't think it's a like a life or death thing. And I think eventually, over time, natural contributions will create their own marketing, as we've seen already. It'll just increase slowly over time and sort of reach a critical mass eventually. But if we do want to speed things along, which I think is a good idea, then having this kind of campaign would definitely be something to look at.
If ETC manages to attract people and also attract money, things will grow a lot faster. Like developers will be more incentivized to come to build on ETC because it has a mass number of people. Also, businesses will start, I don't know, having merchants sold on ETC because it also has a big community. So these things are related in many ways. I do think that organic growth is a good approach, but speeding things a little is not a bad idea, because it's not like we have had that. Right, we're seeing other blockchains who are putting like 50% of the budget in marketing.
Yeah, this is an open thing. Good to have some ideas talked about in this call. Hopefully, some of those ideas get relayed to ETC Co-op, and they spend their funds wisely. One thing to mention on this point was that they mention in the document that they should fund translations to the site, and this is something that I hopefully in the next quarter we can get internationalization support out the door. It's all set up. It's just a case of getting those translations coming in. So hopefully I can talk to Bob about that.
I think that related to marketing, there also should be, I don't know, a chat, a talk with members of co-op, if they can provide the guidelines for marketing, right? And if we have them as a community, we can work around them. And I don't know, everyone is doing a little something on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube, but if we have better guidelines on where the message should be and have the unity in this regard, I think it can help really, really well.
Yeah, I agree, and I think this is something that they are also aware that needs to happen, and hopefully this would be a good point of discussion on a future call with the co-op about where they think ETC stands in terms of narrative, and if we can come to an agreement about what that narrative should be, that would be great. So the call is currently an hour and a half, so I'm going to try and speed up as I go through the final few points of the roadmap so that we cover everything. So they do mention that this year they're going to be investigating the use of Eragon, aka TurboGeth, which we've discussed on previous calls, which is the optimized Geth client for Ethereum that's currently been used on Ethereum, but not on Ethereum Classic, I believe. And is something that, if adopted on Ethereum Classic, would essentially make the sync times a lot quicker and a lot less data usage, and therefore the bloat issue a bit less of a problem. So making the network more decentralized by making it easier to run nodes. So this is a massive, easy win if it's possible to use it on Ethereum Classic. And yeah, just a no downside sort of benefit that if the network can use will be really awesome. They also mentioned that the primary eth_classic Twitter handle with 600k followers and I believe a blue check mark is owned by OHK, with Kevin Lord having personal TweetDeck access at the moment. And I believe they flagged, and we have talked about on previous calls, about the slight centralization problem with this, and ideally there could be some other solution that either opens up access to as we've discussed before, like on GitHub, some kind of open moderation system for posting tweets, or otherwise just adding more people to the TweetDeck so that more frequent updates can be posted. I have not been tracking Twitter lately, so I'm not sure if anyone has any thoughts on the frequency and or content of the eth_classic Twitter handle.
Weren't we gonna try the GitHub Twitter approach with a different account? I thought that we were gonna try to set up that system with some sort of
Yep,
different account.
it's definitely on the to-do list.
Yeah, I understand it, but anyways, I think that's the approach. That's probably what we should try to do. I did ping Charles in DM, but I didn't hear anything back related to that. I typically don't hear anything, and then all of a sudden I'll get a text out of nowhere.
Any thoughts on the eth_classic Twitter handle, Brolar?
Well, they should buy it. It's funny because Charles has been involved in ETC for many years. He has put a lot of money, doing some stuff. I don't know what stuff. But as for the Twitter handler, I don't think it reflects ETC at its current state. It doesn't make people more aware of ETC. It doesn't produce content. It has pinned there a post from, I don't know, a few years ago with a link that doesn't even work. And I don't want to be toxic or anything, but if they don't want to sell it, and or if COP doesn't want to buy it, we should just make a new one, let everybody know, spam everyone that we have a Twitter account, and have a more decentralized ways of posting. Like I don't know, if someone writes something good on Discord, we can have that message, copy it, and just push on Twitter and stuff like that.
Another alternative to that is, and we saw this with the at Bitcoin handle. If you remember during the Bitcoin Cash fork, that handle got compromised by a Bitcoin Cash person. and they were trying to sway people by saying that Bitcoin Cash was Bitcoin. That actually ended up being removed from whoever that owner was and donated to the Bitcoin project to a safe handler. So that's also an avenue. I think that that's an emergency avenue. I haven't seen the need to do that. I think that it's not like they're hurting the project, but like you're saying, is that it's almost inactivity. That's the issue with that, and it's unfortunate because Twitter is such a big part of the crypto ecosystem. Um, so while an alternative is to start building up another account and likely populating the feeds with a new account that maybe has that GitHub element where it's open content getting posted in there with an approval process with community members, or the auxiliary is perhaps asking Twitter if that account can be allocated to the project. So that's just another option.
Yeah, hopefully that's a thing that can really be resolved this year. So I'm glad that ETC Co-op brought that up in their roadmap. I'm gonna bash through the next couple. So we have conferences talk. I think we've talked about this in previous calls, but obviously unable to do it due to COVID. But potentially this or next year we can do an in-person event. That would be awesome. Maybe in Miami, maybe somewhere else.
Linking up with like big Bitcoin conferences makes a whole lot of sense. Just with the Ethereum plus Bitcoin angle. Even if it's not hosting our own conference, but having a presence at big Bitcoin conferences. Um, I think that the ideals are similar there, and it's just it's saying, hey, we're a resilient network too. We align, with this type of philosophy, and I think that would be probably helpful. I know Co-op, at least in ETH Denver, they had a presence there. So at the Ethereum conferences too, so we can have our own conference, but it's also good to just have presence at some of the bigger ones with a lot of foot traffic. I think that should be a priority.
If that equation could be rearranged to be ETC minus BTC equals ETH.
Well, yeah. With math, you can make it look all sorts of ways, right? So whatever formula you want in there. Um, yeah, yeah. That would be the trolling way to do it at a Bitcoin conference, right? Is to shit on Ethereum via that mathematical equation.
I'm just imagining future t-shirts. Okay, so next point, unless there's anything else on conferences. Okay, so quickly, ETC Co-op is now becoming a foundation instead of a charity. Apparently, there's some regulation that requires at least 33% of donations to be from the public, and obviously most of the donations are not coming from the public at this point, so they are converting from a charity to a foundation. The only real difference there, I believe, is that they have to pay a bit of tax, but you can still get your tax deductibles by sending money to the ETC Co-op. My only point on this note was that I hope they don't rename themselves to ETC Foundation. So if they're planning that, please don't.
Yeah, I looked at this of like, wow, that is full circle. Bob leaves the Ethereum Foundation and then comes, and now we got the Ethereum Classic Foundation, right? So, yeah, talk about probably not the brightest way to message that. Also, it's strange that they had this requirement and they knew about it for 5 years and didn't think of any way to get the funding model adjusted so that they could keep the 501c3 status. So I just found that as improper planning there as an organization. But especially when you have, I think Allison is fairly sophisticated in finance and accounting and all that. So I'm surprised that's not on their radar for compliance purposes. What I will say is that the Dow LLC organization that I was talking about on, I believe, the last call, that will 100% meet meet the requirements for the 501c3. So while we might be losing a 501c3 in co-op, we will be gaining it in that Dow LLC. So I've talked to legal about that, and then also just the way that the funding mechanism, it's on chain and verifiable that all of the donations coming in will be from a ton of different sources. So just based on that fee style model. And so that's
Okay.
just in terms of a 501c and donation model. If that's something that someone wants to do, it didn't sound like anyone was even donating in that way, but there will be that option, even though the co-op's going private.
I'm not sure what were the efforts into attracting more funding other than the ones from Grayscale. So this move to a foundation status means that they didn't manage to attract funding, but I'm not sure what were the efforts.
Yeah, that would be if you can get Bob on a call in the future, that would be a great follow-up question as just what type of funding methods did you guys try so that at least as a community, we know what did not work. And then we can try to game plan differently if we need to in the future. But yeah, this read to me as someone just from a finance and accounting background as I was like, wow, that's extremely strange that they didn't have that on their radar in terms of planning for your organization legal status. It's just bizarre to me.
I'm also just generally unaware about the reasons for being a charity in the first place. It's like, why not be for profit? Surely that enables more means of raising funds as opposed to just being non-profit. But I don't know. I don't really know what the MO of co-op is in terms of being a non-profit.
Well, and as a 501c3, I just, I've been going through it, and you do have to have a charitable like cause. So I don't even know what the co-op's cause is. Like the one that I'm setting up will definitely have a cause where you're doing charitable work that does not relate to just supporting ETC. You have to do it that way. That's a legal requirement. So I'm just not sure if they ever had that. I've never seen any messaging like co-op helping kids learn computer science or something, right? So it's I don't know where the charitable element ever came in, and so I'm not surprised that they're going to private foundation. But I think like everyone is, I don't know where the planning on that 501c element was in their organization. It'd be interesting to hear that story.
For sure. Okay, so I think that basically covers the main interesting points from the roadmap. And I just wanted to ask, open the floor to if there's anything that you guys felt was missing from the roadmap in terms of what would be on your roadmap if you were to add an additional paragraph.
I think roadmap, I think infrastructure, we talked about it on this call, but I think Infura really resolving that. I know that to Co-op's credit, they tried to do it with Ether Cluster back in 2019 or 2020, but just trying to rethink about the Infura issue that we had talked about, maybe load balancing and all of that, and having an endpoint that distributes the load around for dApps that will be going online. I think that that's a really smart approach. I don't know how it all works on the back end. Paying and getting some funds going into that, and then building an incentivized system, especially if they're going private. Wow, Co-op, that all of a sudden I'm starting to see where you can get some money and have a value prop. As a private foundation. And then also the wallet stuff. MetaMask is centralized. How do we start building something that's not centralized? Those type of roadmap, I think, that has high value to it, far more than a minimal treasury and all of that other stuff.
I guess from my side, the most important thing is just taking advantage of this period of somewhat calm waters in terms of the community. And whilst it is a little bit quieter, I think that reflects the general state of lack of things to argue about. So I wouldn't necessarily see it as a bad thing at the moment. And I think we should use this time to plan our next steps and do things that are sort of less controversial, maybe, and that everyone can see as being like obvious wins. And yeah, I'm currently very positive about ETC, and I think, as I've mentioned many times before, we're in a very good position right now.
Yeah, and I think brother brought up. I think with this merge event, what's great is what I'm starting to see on mining channels and such is that Ethereum Classic is coming top of mind to miners because they're being affected. It seems like a good opportunity to start planning a big marketing campaign and starting to get that awareness, because what miners are getting this from the merge event, the users will certainly be something to start attracting while those miners start turning over our way. And then in terms of dApps, just from that 21 call, I just wanted to give an update. Last call, I had said we were in testnet on that. We're now in mainnet on the DeFi stack stuff that was being propped up. And we're going through security audits right now, and everything's looking great. So I'm feeling real good about that. So we will have DEX, we will have stable coins. Tether is the big one that I personally want, ETC to Tether on chain. So we will have that coming over. And what that stack enables is also flash loans is built in there. And then also on-chain price oracles will be in there. So I just want to signal to anyone listening that there will be liquidity pools that you will be able to participate in. It's 25 bips is what the setting is. And so those big markets will show up. We'll have USDC or USDC to USDT, so $1 markets, right? So keeping that in parity. All of that stuff, and you have flash loans as well, so you won't even have to hold the liquidity. You can borrow it and execute all of the ARBs in one block, make the money, pay the fees, and you didn't have to expose yourself to any of the assets. So that's exciting. That's a lot of value. That'll start jump-starting the fee market for the miners, and that also gives us something to market in the marketing campaign. Is Ethereum Classic has decentralized finance on it for real.
You mean decentralized finance, right?
Yeah, decentralized Square finance.
One thing that I think it's missing from the roadmap is this mission where Co-op should make sure that ETC will open up for more people in the future, because at current state, it doesn't seem like this is the mission. It seems like, okay, we're having a small blockchain of $4 billion. We'll let it grow and see what happens. But I think one statement should be, okay, this year or next year we plan to attract development, we plan to attract dApps, we plan to attract investors, we plan to attract more people, and we will try to lay a solid foundation for future growth, because time is limited.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I guess reaching sustainability is something that should be part of the mission of ETC Co-op. Like ideally, I mean, it seems like it would make sense for them to want to be able to get to the point where they don't have to exist anymore because their job is done, and as ETC is on its own and it's walking on its own and it doesn't need the help of ETC Co-op anymore.
Yeah, something like this. Like there was events in the past, right? Where they overcome them, and I think this is the moment where they need to charge a bit. It's not that difficult, but engaging in this space and finding solutions to our problems, to our causes that are not protocol related. I think this is the step forward for future growth and future sustainability.
Yeah, so not adding contentious issues into the mix as well. I think that would be very beneficial.
Well, are there any other comments on the roadmap?
The rest is great.
Yeah, I think in summary, I would say that this this latest update from ETC Co-op has been very well received, at least on my part, and I'm glad that they were able to put this out. It's a lot of information, and it was good to get this massive update. And yeah, hopefully this level of communication is going to continue.
In spite our pessimism, right? Because we mostly talk about the negatives. This was the best years and the best months for ETC, and we can see this in this report. So overall, things are good, but can be better.
Yeah, there's always work to do, especially on a big network like this. And yeah, I think that's a good point, is you do have to give credit where credit's due, and they are doing some things great. And so, yes, this is hopefully a call to just be constructive on, please start working with this stuff. Hopefully you address these things, but yeah, there's great work, like funding the clients. I think exploring another client might be a good idea. It's always good to have a little variety in there. That would give us 3 clients. There is
Actually not. They plan to replace Get with a new one.
Oh, they're trying to get away from core Geth.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't I don't know if that's a great idea. I wonder what the logic on that is, but anyways.
Yeah, I think you're talking about the Aragon TurboGef thing, right? So
Yeah.
it's if that was the only client, then it would kind of become a reference client for ETC, which I think is a reasonable approach. And if it's like 10 times more efficient, then if there was going to be a reference client, then that should be it, probably.
It's interesting. That's just core Geth is the main client. It's like when multi-Geth went online and a lot of share was sitting in multi-Geth. So that'll be interesting. That's just another thing.
Yeah, I'm also looking forward to the ECIPs that they are alluding to. So I will keep an eye out for those. All right, so I think it's time to wrap up this call. It's been 2 hours now, and it's early hours in my time zone, which is one of the reasons that I was unable to make the call last week. And with a bit more of a busy schedule, luckily tomorrow I have a day off, so I don't have to wake up early. But normally on a Tuesday, this kind of time is not really viable for me now. So we are going to have to figure out potentially a new time, a new day, maybe a Friday, maybe have it less frequently, maybe once a month, maybe once every 2 weeks. But listen out for updates on that, and hopefully we can communicate in the chat about when an alternative day might be, such that all of us can make the call at a reasonable time, or at least a time where I don't have to wake up in 5 hours. So just a heads up that we might be changing the time or day or frequency of this call going forward.
That sounds good to me. This has always been super early for me. You catch me waking up out of bed, so it'll be exciting to maybe have a different time. Also, maybe a different day. Um, you know, what Ethereum does their calls on Fridays. So it's a thought of maybe thinking about adjusting the day as well.
Yeah, I'm also thinking Friday would be good because at least I don't have to wake up early tomorrow. The day after, sorry.
Well, thanks for the call.
Awesome.
It was informative per usual. Certainly appreciate these weekly or bi-weekly calls whenever they happen. They're very helpful.
Yeah, you're welcome, and thank you everyone for contributing. Thanks to Brolal for helping out with the AV side and for streaming, and thanks to everyone for listening in on both YouTube and in the Discord channel. And unless there's any final notes, we can wrap things up. All right, thank you for joining, everyone. Take care. See you next time. Bye-bye.